Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our course orientation. Today, we will be looking at LET Training's Diploma of Human Resource Management course, that is BSB50320. My name is Tim Stalker. I'm one of the course advisors here at LET Training. Joining me today, I have one of our trainers, Ray McCall. Ray, thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Tim. I look forward to sharing further information.
Fantastic. So just before we get started, Ray, to people who may not have had dealings with you previously, what sort of background do you have as it relates to HR prior to starting with LET Training?
Yeah, absolutely. Quite a substantial period of experience, 25 years in a range of roles, both local, regional and national in the HR space across a range of industries. And the industries predominantly hotels, hospitality and casino operations. In that context, primarily within the learning and development, organisational development space, but certainly part of the national and regional HR teams. Facility services, where I was national manager for Indigenous capability development and employment, and also HR responsibilities in RTO management, and more recently within the community services sector.
Fantastic. So just before we get started on the orientation, just a couple of bits of housekeeping. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask us at any stage. We do have course advisors monitoring the chat, so they will be happy to answer any questions you might have. If the question requires a bit more detail, a bit more depth, they may ask to take your contact details, either phone number or email, or they may ask for your name if you've already made an inquiry with us, and they will be happy to get in contact with you after the orientation and work through those answers with you in a bit more detail. We also will pause the orientation at a couple of occasions, just if there are any questions at that time, feel free to jump in and ask us then. But as I said, today we are looking at the Diploma of HR Management. This is an EQF Level 5 qualification under the Australian Qualifications Framework. As we see here, this course is above the Certificate 4 in HR, and it is below the Advanced Diploma of HR. Now, the difference is mainly, Ray, between a Certificate 4 and Diploma. When we're doing Cert 4, we're looking at sort of supporting HR functions, but at a diploma level, we're looking more at managing and overseeing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Cert 4 is positioned as functional and developing all of the appropriate skills to engage in and coordinate the HR functions and processes. And then, quite rightly, on the basis that you have that foundation, Level 5 is clearly pitched at management, that you are managing an HR function within a business.
Fantastic. Now, as we see here, this is sort of in the middle between the Certificate 4s and the Advanced Diplomas. And unlike a lot of the other courses at LET Training, the Diploma of Human Resource Management does have entry requirements in order for you to enroll. And we've just got these listed here. So there are two main options. First off is with previous study. If you have completed a Certificate 4 in HR, that is an equivalent version of the course, you would have completed these 4 prerequisite units that we have here listed on the left-hand side. Completion of those 4 units will allow you direct enrolment into the diploma course. Alternatively, you may draw on previous work experience in a HR role. And we have here some options here of information that you may need to obtain in order to meet the entry requirements of the course. Now, Ray, of those 3 there, official statement from your employer, performance review reports, or assigned job description, which are the ones you think would provide the most amount of detail, and which would be the easiest to confirm someone enrolling into the course if they were to provide it? Which would you go for?
I would go for the official statement. So an employer statement that specifies the role, that the person has fulfilled in the organisation, the duration of engagement, the wage classification. So again, you'll see the prerequisite is 2 years full-time. So the employer letter needs to clearly meet or address those requirements. And as you say, an overview of the roles and responsibilities. And in that regard, it may be by reference to assigned job description, but making sure that that specification of the roles and responsibilities clearly picks up on the process areas around the 4 prerequisite units.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we'll just pause here for just one quick moment and see if there are any questions we can help with. There doesn't appear to be any questions at this time, so we'll jump on to our next section, which is to do with the career outcomes of this course. Now, we have listed here some career outcomes that you may be able to obtain by completing a Diploma of HR course, but by no means are these all of the career potential opportunities you may be able to obtain by completing the course. So, Ray, having a look at these here, what are some other areas that people might be able to get into after completing the Diploma of HR?
Look, from an HR-related dimension, certainly any areas involving organisational change, organisational development are very much aligned in this regard and requiring that management understanding of the HR function. Potentially as well, anyone within the WHS space. Often the concurrence of HR and WHS, or WHS sitting under the umbrella of HR, so it's quite complementary in that regard. But outside of that, I certainly recommend this qualification for anyone who is in a business unit management role, who has that leadership responsibility, for people management. So that could be a department head, an outlet manager, right through to an owner-operator of a small to medium enterprise.
Fantastic. Now, Ray, one of the things we get asked a lot here is regarding people doing dual course packages. They want to do the Diploma of HR, but they also might want to do one of our other courses as well and get the most out of their time studying with this as possible. Having a look at the courses we offer, what would be your recommendation for potentially a good course to combine with the Diploma of HR?
Yeah, look, I think that there are 2 avenues you can pursue in this regard. One leads on from what I was saying just a moment ago from the business partnering perspective, such that a Diploma of Business would be a really viable complementary program, given the strong focus on managing human capital as a primary resource, and also for HR wanting to claim that seat at the table as the business partner under the current HR philosophical stance. Having that business acumen is crucial. So I think the Diploma of Business is certainly a complementary qualification. At the same time, a Diploma of Leadership and Management is likewise beneficial, given the leadership attributes that an HR practitioner needs to demonstrate, particularly at the whole of business level, from the point of view of influencing and negotiating and communicating and leading the HR function within either a business unit, department, or a whole of operation. So I think either of them are appropriately complementary.
Fantastic. And if you do have any questions regarding the dual course packages, don't hesitate to talk to the course advisors. They'll be happy to help you out on that point as well. And we'll just move on now to our next section, which is to do with the course outline. Now, as we see here, this is a nationally recognised qualification, which means you will have 12 months to complete these 12 skills we have here in front of us. We've divided the skills up into 2 areas: functional skills and professional skills. And as we see, functional skills focuses more on the core of HR, skills that you will need to obtain. The professional skills, though, do vary from institute to institute. We've chosen these as we believe these to be the best ones that focus in on people who will be doing HR. Now, having a look at these here, Ray, of course, we've got recruitment and onboarding, which is a given. But a couple of people have a look at some of these ones here, manage payroll being the one in particular, and they go, will I really need to do that? There are people who are doing payroll. There's a whole payroll and finance team working on that. Do I really need to know that as a HR professional? What would you say to that?
A resounding yes, Tim, and you only have to look at the regulatory environment that we're sitting in, and the number of organisations from small through to your large national and multinational organisations who've been caught up in the web of wage theft, and I'll label it wage theft, where practitioners haven't been able to appropriately interpret award provisions or industrial instrument provisions for the purposes of appropriately paying staff. So in the contemporary climate where it continues, and this is years down the track, it's absolutely critical. And again, mindful as a practitioner under Section 550 of the existing Fair Work Act, that you're potentially liable for any advice, regardless of whether or not it's an intentional misleading or it's just by virtue of, you providing counselling in terms of pays and payrolls and so forth. So I think pragmatically, from a limiting your liability and managing the risk, understanding the payroll management process is crucial.
Right, no worries. Now, having a look at these functional skills, as I said, this is the core of HR skills that people will be developing. Ray, as a trainer, is there any particular spot in this course we recommend people start from?
Look, I'll probably answer that by going, I'll tell you where to end with.
Right.
And I say that from the point of view of the unit coordinate HR functions and processes is essentially what I call a capstone unit. So I would leave that one towards the end
Right.
in terms of the units that I approach from the functional skill areas. If I were then to zero down the areas that people tend to have a familiarity with, and perhaps is a good embarking point, is the coordinate learning and development of teams and individuals,
Right.
or facilitate performance development processes, leaving then employee industrial relations and workforce planning to a little later in the course. And I say that for the reason that given the density of understanding industrial relations legislative requirements, it potentially is a little bit more time consuming and certainly much more conceptual, as is workforce planning from supply and demand analyses and researching the labour market and the workforce environment. So I think the pragmatic ones, learning and development, performance development, move on then to your E&IR, workforce planning, and finalise it in terms of the HR side with HR functions and processes.
Fantastic. Now, one of the advantages of our courses are that they are completely self-paced and self-guided. So you can take this advice on board, or alternatively, you're able to start at the course wherever you like. You will have access to all units at enrolment into this particular course, so you can determine your own starting point. It is entirely up to you. So that's one of the advantages to this particular course. And we'll move on now to our next section. As we do, are there any questions in the chat that we can help with at this time? It doesn't appear to be, so let's move on to our next section, which is on the learning and facilitation model. Now, we've been touching on this as we've been going through, but just to make it clear, this is a 100% self-paced and self-guided course that is 100% online. You can log in anywhere and any time, so long as you have a computer, a desktop or laptop computer, no smart devices, and internet access once you've got your login details. We have had people complete this course in remote areas of Australia doing fly-in, fly-out roles. We've had people with us who are currently overseas as part of the Defence Forces. We've also had people who are currently working overseas who are able to enrol in an Australian course who have finished their studies with us. The only thing that needs to be made aware of is that the trainers are available during Sydney office hours between 9 and 5:30. So if you are overseas, or if you are in a different time zone in Sydney, you will need to factor in those time differences when booking in support sessions or your assessment tasks. One way that we supplement our resource materials here is with webinars. Now, these are regularly scheduled. Ray, you handle a lot of our webinars. What are some of the more recent ones that you've completed that are relating to the Diploma of HR?
Absolutely. Just on that note, we adopt a two-pronged approach in terms of webinars. There are those suite of webinars that drill down on assessment requirements, so unpack the assessment task specifications, particularly the practical projects, and guide learners on requirements so that there is, a full understanding of expectations. So that suite of webinars for unit alignment to the units that you've indicated comprise the program. The other are topic related. So those relate to aspects around the HR subject matter space. In that regard, I conduct a quarterly workplace relations review, which looks at what's happening in the HR space, and at the time of recording, the transformative changes to the Fair Work Act from November 2022 are certainly a key focus in that regard. Having said that, I've unpacked awards, a modern award, how to read and interpret a modern award, differentiating between organisational change and organisational development, distinguishing, what are the differences between onboarding, induction, and orientation, for example. So a lot of explaining the conceptual side of things, and then topics which range down to the very practical, the roles and responsibilities of a hiring manager in the recruitment process, how to develop a policy and procedure, particularly applicable to the diploma of HRM where you're designing those P&Ps. So very wide-ranging in that regard, and as we move forward, always taking feedback from learners as to areas of interest that a webinar can be conducted and recorded for future reference.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, access to these webinars can be done two ways. First off, if a webinar is coming up that is part of the HR course, we will let you know by email, and you can register to watch that live and participate in any questions with the trainer that you might have at that time. Alternatively, what we can do is we will always provide you with links to webinars that you're not able to view live, as well as ones that have been previously recorded, and you can view those at your own pace and in your own time. The important thing to note, regardless, access to webinars does not incur any additional fees. And another area of training that doesn't incur additional fees are our support services. And for that, you will be assigned a tutor or trainer to support you through your studies with us. Now, your trainer is available via email, so feel free to email them any questions. We would always recommend that it's better to send one email with 5 questions in it as opposed to 5 emails with a question in it each, because the trainer will respond within 1 to 2 business days. So if you send them all through at once, you'll be able to get all your information back at once rather than waiting on each individual email to come through. That's very important to keep in mind. You can also contact your trainer via support sessions over Zoom. These are normally 30 minutes long, and what you will need to do is book in a couple of days in advance with your trainer or with the admin team. Now, Ray, as someone who has done countless support sessions, what's a quick bit of advice? What's the number one bit of advice you would give to people who have never done one before? What's the one bit of advice you'd give them?
Be prepared. You've mentioned before about communicating questions. So have your list of questions and supporting resources that you're referring to, whether that be materials through the learning management system or documents that you've printed out or communications from the trainer. So it's very clearly structured and driven by you as the learner. And it probably goes without saying, but being totally undistracted for that 30 minutes. I've encountered learners who, are choosing to undertake a support session whilst they're driving. There have been instances where I've needed to terminate the session and request that we rebook because of, concerns of they're needing to focus on the road, but certainly it's not an efficient or effective use of their time. So I think all of those really basic housekeeping elements, and also be prepared. What is it that you want to get out of the window of opportunity in speaking directly with your support tutor?
Exactly. One other thing to point out, in some places it would be considered illegal to be having a support session while you're driving. So it might be an idea to do that one at home, at work, or if you are going to do it in the car, make sure the car isn't moving at the time. Exactly right. Keep it stationary. Now, your trainer will also be your assessor most of the time. They will be marking your assessments and giving you feedback within 5 business days. Now, in the event that your assessment isn't considered competent the first time, and actually we'll move on to our next section, which has to do with assessments, and we have a sample of some of them here. But just to continue on with that point, your assessments are marked within 5 business days. If you're not considered competent, that's okay. That's no problem. Your trainer will provide you with feedback, advising you on what areas you might need to change in that assessment attempt, and you can have another attempt at that straight away. Important thing to keep in mind is assessment attempts, extra attempts, do not incur additional fees either, nor do any of the support sessions we've just discussed. But as we see here, we have a example of one of the assessment tasks you might be asked to do as part of this course. As we see here, this is actually from HRM 415, so this is part of our certificate 4 in HR course, but the layout is fairly similar. So there are 2 assessments in each unit. One of them is a series of short answer questions. We're not going to be asking for pages and pages of work. It's going to be outlining, briefly explaining, detailing, bullet point summaries, things like that. So no need to overthink it, no need to worry about word counts or anything like that. It's all relatively straightforward. These assessments are designed so that your trainers can see that, yes, you have read your resource material and you understand your resource material. And once you finish them, you can move on to your practical assessments. Now, practical assessments vary. Some of them could be case studies. Some of them could be simulated workplace events. Some of them could be interactive tasks with your trainer. Now, Ray, considering the Diploma of HR course, what are some of the interactive tasks students might be asked to complete?
Absolutely. Quite wide-ranging, from the likes of facilitating a meeting with stakeholders where you're introducing a new policy and procedure, for example, through to facilitating a meeting upward with executive committee or managing director, CEO, to gain approval for documentation, quality management system documentation. It could be through facilitating a presentation or a competency-based training session. So the sorts of activities that require you to demonstrate your ability to apply the skills relating to the unit of competency, from an industrial relations point of view, to manage a workplace conflict, meeting with individuals who have, concerns from an employee relations and an employee industrial relations perspective. So very practical, interactive activities.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, these practical assessments do not require access to a classroom or a worksite to finish them. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And they can be completed with the assistance of your trainer, or they can be completed on video with people you know, like friends or family or colleagues. More information about those assessments can be found in the course information packs that we send out to people who have inquired in the courses by email, or you can always talk to the course advisors and we'll always be happy to help out with any further questions. We'll move on to the next section now, which is on other assessment pathways. Now, as well as completing the assessments, there are some other options by which people can complete these courses. For example, we have here credit transfers. Now, Ray, credit transfers, we're referring to previous study in a vet course, correct?
Correct. It's comparing apples for apples. I use that cliche, that you've completed the unit that is a part of your current program through another RTO, and you want that acknowledged so that you don't need to repeat it. So you seek credit transfer. It could be for a superseded. You mentioned that before, talking about the entry requirements. So you did the unit of a previous version of the same focus or the same competency or skill, and it is deemed equivalent, that then it can be processed through a credit transfer perspective. But really zeroing in on what you said before, it is a vet qualification. So it's vet units of competency that have been achieved, that because the systems are not integrated in this sense, modules or programs you've undertaken in higher education, if they're not with unit codes from the vet sector, they don't fall within the realm of credit transfer.
Fantastic. Now, these assessments can be completed prior to enrolment. All you need to do is provide us with a transcript, either
Mhm.
from the USI or from the institute you previously studied at. We can let you know within 1 to 2 business days if there is any potential credit transfer available, and there are no additional fees when it comes to a credit transfer assessment. Now, this
Mm.
is different to an RPL assessment. An RPL assessment is involved in skills developed at the workplace, correct, Ray?
That's correct. It's evidencing actual achievements and your application of the skills in a real world context. It could include, as relevant to the particular unit, some informal training achievements, but essentially it's you being able to compile and submit a portfolio that demonstrates, and let's pick, managing recruitment and onboarding, for example, that you would provide appropriately redacted or de-identified from a confidentiality point of view, samples of evidence that show, for example, you've developed, you've drafted, you've distributed, you've consulted on, you've revised, you've gained approval on recruitment policies and procedures for the organisation. You've got some relevant documentation that you've trialled from an onboarding point of view, inductions and probationary performance reviews, that it includes setting up and liaising with third-party providers where you may have outsourced aspects of recruitment to an agency, as it were. All of those things that evidence and demonstrate that you have actually engaged in the skill at the required level. And in this case, it's all about management level.
Fantastic. Now, these assessments can be started prior to enrolment with a consultation with one of our senior trainers. We would recommend providing a job description and resume for those consultations. The trainer would be able to advise you after around 15 to 20-minute phone call whether there is potential for RPL. After enrolment, your trainer would then provide you with an RPL kit, which has details on the specific pieces of evidence you need to obtain. Now, the important thing to note is at this point, when you submit that evidence, there is a fee that is incurred. However, your trainer and the course advisors prior to that stage will be happy to discuss the potential fees with you. Now, one final option we have here is gap training. Now, Ray, that's when someone has completed most of a unit, but just needs to complete a little bit more to be considered 100% competent. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's an adjunct to the RPL process where, quite rightly, they've partially demonstrated their capacity. So we can organise or confer partial recognition of prior learning, but there is a component or an element that they don't have prior experience. And interestingly, the managed payroll unit that you talked about before is one of those where I find people do have to engage in gap training and assessment, because the way that the unit is designed by industry and mandated by government, there are pre and post activities that often, if you're not that person who's doing the number crunching and paying monies into people's accounts and third-party agencies and bodies, that you don't necessarily have that exposure. So often people are able to partially address the pre and post payroll processing aspect, but they need to undertake separate assessment around actually interpreting the award and crunching the numbers and doing calculations and recommendations and so forth. So in that case, we provide the suite of learning and assessment materials. Once they've successfully completed that component, that outcome in conjunction with the partial RPL results in a whole of unit outcome for the candidate.
Fantastic. And we'll just move on now to our next section, which has to do with support services. Now, we've been touching on support services for the last few minutes, but just to reiterate them, if you have any questions prior to enrolment regarding the course, you can always call us at 0296333929. That is the number for the office here. We are available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sydney time. Alternatively, you can email any inquiries about the course you may have to enquire@lettraining.com.au. We also have groups available on Facebook, divided up into Certificate 4, Diploma and Advanced Diploma. This is for students to have peer support while they are working on assessments. And we'll just move on now to enrolment. Now, if after listening to this, you've decided you do wish to enroll in the course, that's fantastic. There are a couple of ways by which you can do that. First off, you can enroll via our website. Just go to the Diploma of HR's course information page, which the link is listed there below. That will take you to that particular page. You are looking for the Enroll Now button, which is directly under the nationally recognized training logo. Clicking on that will take you to the enrolment section and shouldn't take you more than around 10 minutes to complete the enrolment process online. Alternatively, you can enroll via an enrolment form. You receive these forms as part of the course information pack that we send out. They are attached to those information packs. All you need to do is complete that form. You don't even need to print it out. You can complete it on your computer and email it back to us. So email it back to enquire@lettraining.com.au. If you wish to enroll using a payment plan, you can use either of those options, and we will come to payment plans in just a moment. If you do have any questions or if you do need any assistance with enrolling, you can always give us a call. The number again is 0296333929. And as I mentioned, all of our courses can be paid off via payment plans. We have some examples of potential payment plan options here. As we see, you can pay it off half up front and then the remaining half in 30 or 60 days. Alternatively, there are monthly, fortnightly, and weekly payment plans. The important thing to note out is each of these plans does have an upfront cost. That fee will be taken at enrolment. So if that initial payment isn't taken, then the enrolment can't be completed. Some of these enrolment forms also do, some of these payment plans do also incur admin fees. These admin fees are very clearly outlined, whether you are enrolling via payment plan or whether you are enrolling online. If you would like to potentially customize some of these plans, so if you'd like to pay off a weekly payment plan, maybe a little bit quicker, contact the admin team or contact the course advisors, and we'll be happy to see if we can work out some sort of customized plan for you. The important thing to keep in mind is that the upfront payment for the course must remain as it is. And we'll move on now to one final chance for anyone in the audience to ask any questions regarding the course. Okay, there doesn't appear to be any questions at this time. If you do have any questions, you can contact the course advisors at enquire@lettraining.com.au, or you can contact us. The number is there again, 0296333929, or you can always ask us on Facebook at Let Training 1. But with no other questions in chat, we'll wrap up the orientation here. I'd like to thank Ray for his time this morning. Thanks a lot, Ray. It was greatly appreciated.
My pleasure, Tim, and I look forward to welcoming new learners to Let Training and supporting their program progress.
Fantastic. So my name is Tim Stalker. I'm one of the course advisors here at Let Training. This has been the orientation for the Diploma of HR Management, BSB50320. And with that, we will finish up the orientation there. Thank you very much for your attendance and attention, and have a great day.